There was a woman standing next to my car. Her dress was black, old, wrong, and she already had one leg inside the back seat. We hadn't seen a single person the whole night, not one sign that anyone had ever been there. And then, right before we left, her. I'll get to that. But first, let me tell you about the village. Growing up, everyone in my hometown knew about the abandoned military base. It was built during World War II, expanded during the Cold War. At its peak, over 200 military families lived there, a whole neighborhood, tucked behind fences, hidden from the world. Then, in 1984, they just left, packed up, walked out, and left everything standing. For 30 years it sat there, empty, decaying, waiting. We heard every story imaginable growing up: demonic cults, underground experiments, things that didn't have names. Nobody could prove any of it, and that made it worse. When I was in middle school, my older brother came into my room one night and told us he'd been inside. We didn't believe him. He described the church. He said there was a trap door beside the altar and that he could hear moaning coming up from the basement. He laid it on thick. By the end, he had all of us convinced. Was he messing with us? Probably, but it didn't matter. The story stuck. For years, my friends and I said the same thing. Once we can drive, we're going. We never did, because we didn't know exactly where it was, and because even abandoned, it was still technically a military installation. We had no idea what kind of trouble we'd be walking into. Then, senior year of high school, my friend Alex showed up and said he knew where the entrance was. We didn't believe him either. So I said, "Fine, let's go." I was certain he was bluffing, and we'd drive around for an hour and find nothing. I was wrong. It was around 11 at night when we pulled into the area. Alex kept telling me to stop every few feet. "I think this is it." "No, wait." Until finally we found it. An overgrown road, a no trespassing sign buried under vines. My friends were all in. I was terrified. But we'd been talking about this basically our whole lives. So I turned off my headlights and let the car roll forward into the dark. We passed a security gate. Nobody there. I got out and lifted it myself. And then, it got strange. On the side of the road, furniture, just scattered everywhere. Beds, dressers, tables. Like someone had quietly emptied a neighborhood and left everything at the curb. Another gate. Alex lifted it this time. And then, we were inside. There's a show called Stranger Things. You know, the Upside Down? That's the only way I can describe it. It looked like a neighborhood. Normal houses, a church, streets laid out like any small American town. But everything was wrong, decaying, warped. Like reality had slowly been leaking out of it for 30 years. We parked in front of the church and got out. The first thing I noticed, no cameras. That helped my nerves, a little. We went into the church first. Graffiti everywhere. I looked for the trapdoor my brother had described years ago. No trapdoor, obviously. Then we explored the houses. Some had been destroyed, walls caved in, floors buckled. Those were almost a relief. The ones that were still intact were worse. Way worse. Our friend Scott was losing his mind the entire time. He kept insisting someone else was there. We kept telling him it was just his imagination. Then, inside one of the houses, we all stopped at the same moment. A sound. Not the kind of sound an old house makes when it settles. Something different. Something deliberate. Wood creaking, like footsteps. Before anyone could say a word, Alex shouted into the dark, "Is anyone there?" The sound stopped. We stood there in silence. Alex and Nick thought it was just the building. Scott was sure we weren't alone. I said we were leaving. We were heading for the front door when Scott stumbled backward. He didn't scream. He just pointed, silently, at the window on the side of the house. 3 shadows, moving, on the wall of the house next door. Not animal shapes, not tree branches. The unmistakable outline of heads. I crossed to the window as quietly as I could and looked outside. The shadows slipped around the corner and into the backyard of the house we were standing in. I whispered one word. Run. We sprinted out the front door, all 4 of us, full speed, in the direction of my car. Scott was in the lead, and then he screamed. Not a startled yelp, a full, top-of-his-lungs scream. Standing next to my car, at the back door, which was already open, was a tall woman in a long black dress. Old, wrong, out of place in a way I still can't articulate. She had one leg inside the back seat. She heard Scott scream. She let go of the door, and she walked, calmly, unhurried, into the church and disappeared. We didn't stop. We got in the car. I drove so fast I nearly lost control on the dirt road. The easy explanation, homeless people. Squatters using an abandoned facility for shelter. That makes sense. Right up until the part where a woman tries to get into your car in the middle of the night. We'd walked around for a long time before that. Seen nothing. No signs of anyone. No footprints, no fires, no belongings. And then, right as we were about to leave, 3 shadows and a woman in a black dress. I've told this story 100 times. I always end up in the same place. The village was torn down in 2014. There's nothing left. But I still think about her, standing at my car, patient, like she'd been waiting for us the whole time. My wife and I were reckless when we first started dating. Not dangerous, not to anyone else. But we used to break into abandoned buildings and look for ghosts. She believed. I didn't. I went along because I liked her. Out of every place we ever explored, there's only one I can't explain. It was a dark night. The cloudy kind that makes everything feel heavier. She'd found a house in the middle of nowhere, barely standing, half collapsed, boarded up. I kicked the door in. The living room was missing half its floor, just a hole in the middle dropping down to the basement. She ignored every warning sign and started poking around. I stayed by the door. Eventually, curiosity won. I followed her into the next room and she told me to go check upstairs. I did. At the top of the stairs, first room on the right, an old bedroom. Bed still made. A folded bathrobe at the foot of it. Like someone had stepped out for a moment and just never came back. In the corner, a crawl space. Inside the crawl space, boxes of diapers, baby food, all old, covered in dust, chewed through by animals, and a smell that hit me like a wall. I was about to leave when I heard it, creaking. I swept my flashlight across the crawl space and found another opening, a narrow tunnel running to the other bedroom at the end of the hall. The sound was coming from there. I was too big to crawl through, so I went back to the hallway. The creaking got louder as I got closer. My heart was pounding, not because I was scared of a ghost. I was bracing for raccoons. I stepped through the doorway, and I almost fell over. There was a woman sitting in a rocking chair facing the window. I could only see the top of her head in the hem of a long skirt. She rocked, slow, back and forth. I tried to see her face in the window's reflection. Too dark. I took one step toward her. The floor creaked. She stopped rocking. I apologized. I told her we didn't know anyone lived here, that we'd leave immediately. Before I could finish the sentence, she started rocking again, like she hadn't heard me, like I wasn't there. I don't know why. I should have run, but I stepped closer and asked if she was okay. She stopped again. Then she stood up, slowly, very slowly. And then she made a sound, not words, a low, low hum. She turned around. I ran. I didn't see her face. It happened too fast. All I can tell you is that she was old and her skin looked wrong. I ran downstairs screaming at my girlfriend to leave. She thought I was joking. I was on my knees begging her not to go up there. She went up. I followed, terrified. She walked to the bedroom at the end of the hall, stepped into the doorway and said, "Oh my God." I braced myself. Then she started laughing. The rocking chair was there, sitting empty. No woman. She asked if I was scared of a chair. I told her what I'd seen. She didn't believe me. We left. And as we walked toward the stairs together, we both heard it. The creaking. The sound of a rocking chair going back and forth. She froze. She walked back to the doorway, and she saw it. Someone sitting in the chair, rocking, humming a melody. She didn't engage. She turned and ran. We both ran. She was screaming before we reached the car. We drove back years later. The house was gone. Not condemned, not boarded up. Gone. Not even a foundation left. I've turned that night over in my head more times than I can count. Maybe it was just a very old woman living in a decomposing house with a boarded up door and a hole in the living room floor. Maybe. But something in my gut has never believed that. And I don't think it ever will.